I can't believe I'm back here again, standing in front of the abandoned mansion where it all began. The memories flood my mind, each one more horrifying than the last. I try to push them away, but they're like ghosts, haunting me every time I close my eyes. Haunting me just like the symphonies that echoed through the halls of that cursed place. It all started when I received a call from my friend, Sarah. She was a forensic scientist and had asked me to accompany her to a crime scene. Apparently, the mansion was being renovated and a construction worker had stumbled upon a hidden room in the basement. Inside, he found a gruesome scene, mutilated bodies of what seemed to be a family. Sarah wanted my help in identifying the bodies and collecting evidence. As we walked towards the mansion, I couldn't shake off the feeling of dread that was slowly creeping up my spine. The dilapidated exterior and the overgrown gardens seemed to whisper warnings to us. But I brushed it off as my imagination, trying to convince myself that there was a logical explanation for everything. We entered the mansion and were greeted by the musty smell of rot and decay. It was clear that this place had been abandoned for years. Sarah led the way to the basement, and as we descended the creaky stairs, I couldn't help but feel like we were being watched. The hidden room was covered in a thick layer of dust and cobwebs, as if it was untouched for decades. Sarah started examining the bodies, while I searched for any evidence or clues. That's when I heard it, a faint sound of music coming from somewhere deep within the mansion. At first, I thought it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But as I listened closely, the music grew louder and more distinct. It was a hauntingly beautiful symphony, but there was something off about it. The notes sounded distorted, like they were coming from an old vinyl record that had been played too many times. I called out to Sarah, but she didn't seem to hear the music. She was completely focused on her work. I decided to follow the sound, hoping it would lead me to the source and maybe even an explanation for the gruesome scene in the hidden room. As I walked through the abandoned hallways, the music got louder and louder. It was like it was drawing me in, tempting me to continue. I couldn't resist it. I had to know where it was coming from. I found myself in the ballroom, and there, in the center of the room, was a grand piano. The sound was coming from it, but there was no one playing it. The keys were moving on their own, producing the eerie symphony that echoed through the mansion. I couldn't believe my eyes. I must be dreaming, I thought. But then I felt a cold hand on my shoulder and I turned around to see a figure dressed in a tattered black dress. Her eyes were soulless, and she had a sinister smile on her face. I tried to scream, but no sound came out of my mouth. The woman spoke in a voice that chilled me to the bone. "Welcome to my symphony, my dear. The music of death and despair. The one that calls to those who enter my domain." I was paralyzed with fear, unable to move or even think. The woman continued to play the piano, her fingers moving swiftly across the keys. But then, she suddenly stopped and turned to me. "They came here for a new beginning, but they found their end instead. And now, you will join them in my grand finale." Before I could react, the woman lunged at me with a wicked smile on her face. I closed my eyes, expecting the worst. But then, I felt a sharp pain on my arm and everything went black. I woke up in the hospital, surrounded by worried faces. Sarah was there, holding my hand and telling me what had happened. Apparently, she found me passed out in the ballroom, clutching a long shard of glass. The doctors said I had a severe panic attack, and I was lucky to be alive. I tried to tell Sarah about the woman in the ballroom, but she didn't believe me. She said there was no piano in the mansion and that the hidden room we discovered was empty. But I know what I saw and heard. And every time I close my eyes, I can still hear the spectral symphonies at the crime scene. I know that woman is still there, waiting for her next victim to join her in her twisted performance. And I pray that no one ever has to experience the horrors of that mansion like I did.